You all hear me?
Dave. Bob, can you hear on the live stream?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Bob, do you know where John Michael is?
No, I do not.
We need to defer this.
This is for the Galinsky drain.
Yes.
Okay. It's a quarter revision.
Correct.
It's a quarter revision. So Mr. Galinsky has petitioned for a drain to service 3 severances that he has done. And since he's the only one paying, for the cost, he's the only one responsible for the cost. So we've received no objections, and I see no reason to not move forward.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Allison, was there any comments or objections received?
Through your worship, there was no comments or objections received for the Chester Galinsky drain.
Okay, and I assume there's anyone in attendance wish to make comment? Questions from the committee? All right, we'll need to move inside of the quarter revision. Members for the Galinsky drain do hereby accept the recommendations of the drainage engineer, John Michael Spreets Associates of London, and further does hereby confirm the drainage assessment as outlined in the report of the drainage engineer dated April 26, 2022. Jaguar and Cerna on favor, agreed. And still from the committee, that the court of revision for relating the Galinsky drain be adjourned. Council reconvene at 7:36. Cerna and Jaguar, all in favor? Carried. Next, we have a public meeting concerning the zoning bylaw amendments. We need a mover and seconder. Application D14Z08-22 of Rocks Farms Limited relating to the property located at part of lot 11, concession 11, former geographic township of South Dorchester, now in the township of Malahide, known as 49779 Lions Line, called to order at 7:37. Winter and Lewis, all in favor? Purpose of this public meeting is to consider an application to change the zoning classification, part lot 11, concession 11, former geographic township of South Dorchester, township of Malahide, from general agriculture A1 zone to special agriculture A2 zone and rural residential RR zone. This is the name of Ryan Verhoog, care of White Code LLP on behalf of Rocks Farms Limited, care Wayne Locks. Allison, can you advise and confirm the method and date of notice, please?
Yes, through your worship, notice of the meeting was given in the prescribed manner by publication in the Umber Express on June 15th and June 22nd. In addition, affected property owners within 120 meters were sent a notice by mail at minimum 20 days prior to the meeting.
Thank you. Adam, can you give us an overview?
Certainly, your worship. So council considered this surplus farmhouse severance last year. I believe it was in November of last year, and it went through the severance process. and was granted provisional consent, which, as council is aware, surplus farmhouse severances require that standard zoning bylaw amendment that places the provisions on both the retained and the severed residential property. Between that time and tonight, the surveyor acknowledged on the site that there was a technical discrepancy. So, as stated in my report, there's a minor adjustment in the severed lot being created. I've reviewed, and there's no concerning issues with the change in configuration. Council's previous comments on this severance can remain. What I'm recommending, however, is that given there's a new public hearing at the Land Division Committee for this application, that we approve the application that's in front of council this evening for rezoning, but withhold passing a bylaw until it's known that the zoning bylaw changes line up with what's approved by the Land Division Committee at a coming date. So unless there's any other questions from council or those in the audience, I do see that the applicant or a representative of the applicant's online, but there's nothing further to add to my report.
All right, has the applicant got anything to add?
No, we do not.
Okay. Go ahead, Mark. Max?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had a resident at the door today in regards to this zoning bylaw amendment. And it was his understanding that you had to live in the municipality or the county, in this case, Malahide or Elgin, to be eligible to get a zoning bylaw amendment. I said I would ask the question. That's as far as I could go.
Thank you. And through you, your worship, there was a requirement in the Malahide official plan that required the farmer having a dwelling remaining within the township of Malahide. In 2019, there was an application for a site-specific official plan amendment, or to remove that, and what ultimately happened, that requirement for that territorial requirement to be having property in Malahide was removed. So that's no longer a requirement in the township of Malahide.
Mark, did you have a question? Okay. Eric Steele, any comments on this application?
Not on this file.
He's not on? Okay. Any other questions from council? All right, mover and seconder, the public meeting concerning zoning bylaw amendment application D14Z08-22, Rocks Farm Limited, relating to the property located at Lot 11, Concession 11, former geographic township of South Dorchester, now in the township of Malahide, known as 497799 Lions Line, be adjourned. Council reconvene at 7:42. Seconder, Gare, Widner, all in favor, carried. And a mover and seconder, report number DS 22-29, until zoning bylaw amendment application of Rocks Farm Limited be received. And then zoning bylaw amendment application number D14Z08-22 of Rocks Farm Limited, relating to the property located at Part Lot 11, Concession 11, former geographic township of South Dorchester, now in the township of Malahide, known as 49779. Lions Line be approved for the reasons set out in this report, and council withhold the passing of the bylaw number 20-46 until such time that a notice of decision for the county of Elgin be approved, associated to consent application number E92-21 has been received to the satisfaction of the township of Malahide. Moore and Lewis, all in favor, carried. Thank you for attending.
Thank you.
Eric is on this one.
Next, we have a public meeting. We need a mover and a second on a public meeting concerning zoning bylaw amendment application number D14Z09-22 of Frank and Sherry Berkelmans relating to property located at Lot 31, Concession 9, known as 11644 Carter Road, be called to order. 7:44. Seconder, Serna, Widner, all in favor. Purpose of this public meeting is to consider an application to change the zoning from lot 31 concession 9 Township of Malahide from general agriculture A1 to special agriculture A2 zone and general agriculture A1 zone. This is in the name of Simona Rastanu and SASBM Limited on behalf of Frank and Sherry Berkelmans. Lot 31 concession 9 Township of Malahide, known as 11644 Carter Road. Alice, can you advise and confirm the method and date of notice, please?
Yes, through your worship, notice of the meeting was given in the prescribed manner by publication in the Elmer Express on June 15th and June 22nd. In addition, affected property owners within 120 meters were sent a notice by mail at minimum 20 days prior to the meeting.
Thank you. Adam, are you doing this or is there? Eric. Eric, can you give us an overview, please?
Thank you, your worship. So before council tonight is a zoning bylaw amendment and a concurrent consent application. The consent application is to sever a surplus farm dwelling servants from the surrounding farm parcel. And the zoning amendment, as previously stated, would rezone from the AG1 to the AG2 zone, as well as from an A1 to AG4 special. So there's criteria under the provincial policy statement, a county official plan and a local official plan that need to be met, including rezoning of both the severed and retained parcels. In review of this application, staff are satisfied that these criteria have been met. And as stated, the zoning bylaw amendment would propose to attach site specific provisions to the proposed severed parcel. And these would simply recognize existing dwelling or existing buildings that do not comply with the AG4 zone. And so it would recognize the height of an existing barn, as well as the height and ground floor area of an existing detached garage. So staff are recommending that consent be supported. The recommended conditions be forwarded to Land Division Committee for the consideration, and that the zoning bylaw amendment be approved, and that council hold the passing of the bylaw until a decision is made of the consent by the county. And that concludes my presentation. At this time, be happy to take questions from members of council.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Any questions from council on this application? Any comments from the applicant? I don't think they're there.
No, I'm here. Good evening, your worship and council members. My name is Simona Rasanu, and I'm the agent for the applicant. The only thing I'd like to say is that I agree with the recommendation provided by Mr. Steele in his report, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from council, either to the applicant or to the agent? None. Mover and second, the public meeting concerning the zoning bylaw amendment application D14Z08-22, Frank and Cherry Berkelmans related to property located at lot 31, concession 9, known as 11644 Carter Road, be adjourned. Council reconvene at 7:47. And Secretary Galinsky and Cerna, all in favor? Carried. Now, mover and second, report number DS22-30 entitled zoning bylaw amendment application. Consent application of Frank and Cherry Berkelmans to be received. The application to sever number D10E49-22. Frank and Cherry Berkelmans related to the property located at lot 31, concession 9, known as 11644 Carter Road, be supported for the reasons set out in this report. In this report and the recommendations conditioned be forwarded to the Land Division Committee for its review and consideration. And the zoning bylaw amendment application number D14Z09-22 of Frank and Cherry Berkelmans related the property located at lot 31, concession 9, known as 11644 Carter Road, be approved for the reasons set out in this report. And council withhold the passing of this bylaw 2247 until such time a notice of decision from the County of Elgin approving the associated consent application has been received to the satisfaction of the Township of Malahide. Whitner, Blinsky, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a preamble for this? It's on- it's on the second page.
And their planner is going to start opposed to us.
All right, next we have a public meeting. So I need a mover and second, the public meeting concerning zoning bylaw amendment application number D14 Z1022 of Leverton Development relating to the property located at Lot G, concession south of Main Street, registered plan number 18, known as municipality as 51403 Ron McNeil line. We call to order at 7:49. Linsky, it's Lewis, all in favor? Here. Purpose of this public meeting is to consider an application to change the zoning classification from Lot G, Plan 18, Township of Malahide, shall remain in the village residential 1 VR1 zone with a site specific provision, Village Residential 1 VR zone. This is the name of Matt Campbell, care of Zelenka Preamo Limited on behalf of Leverton Development. The property is located at Lot G, Plan 18, Township of Malahide, known as 51403 Ron McNeil line. Before we move into the public meeting, staff has advised that the recommendations in the staff report include a statement which reads that council holds a public meeting under the Planning Act to hear the comments from members of the public. The intent of that statement is for the public meeting we're about to have. Staff wish to listen to the comments raised here this evening and will consider those with the comments already received and then follow up with a recommendation for council at a following meeting. Allison, can you advise and confirm the method and date of notice, please?
Yes, through your worship, notice of the meeting was given in the prescribed manner by publication in the Elmer Express on June 15th and June 22nd. In addition, affected property owners within 120 meters were sent a notice by mail at minimum 20 days prior to the meeting.
Thank you. Mr. Campbell, are you there?
I am here, Mayor and Council.
Okay. Could you give us an overview of the application, please?
Absolutely. Thanks very much for the opportunity. If you refer to page 119 in Council's agenda, that's the section of our planning report where we have the overview of the development. So I can walk you through with reference to that section. So what Leverton Developments is proposing on this particular property is to remove the existing single detached dwelling, which is in a pretty sad state of repair, and proposing a 6-unit apartment building. The apartment building is proposed to be 3 stories in height with a pitched roof and keeping generally with the architectural character of the area. Although we recognize that this is certainly a new form of housing for the area, and we can walk through the actual site plan that's proposed. So there's a rendering of the building that's shown on page 119. If you go to the following page, page 120, there is the conceptual site plan. And you can see how the site is laid out. The apartment building is located to the front of the site, and which factors into part of the zoning bylaw amendment request that will be for, well, that we're discussing, and that a bylaw will be for council at a later date. I'll draw just a couple of items of note. We're requesting a reduced front yard setback of 1 meter. And if you refer to the conceptual site plan, the building is generally in line with the other buildings to the east and the west. So that's really an artifact of that the existing buildings predate the requirements of the current zoning bylaw. So we're really just bringing this building up to where the abutting buildings to the east and west currently have the street limit. Going south through the site, there's the apartment building at the north, then we have a small amenity area for the residents of the 6 units that could include a garden or gazebo or both, as we're showing both there. And then there's a rear parking area. Vehicular access to this building is proposed through the laneway that's adjacent to the east. So that allows us to really maximize the use of land on the site. So we're not devoting additional land to any sort of redundant driveways. There are 12 parking spaces shown. It's 2 parking spaces per unit. Now, in general, for apartment buildings, we're seeing lower parking requirements, but considering this is not an urban area, this is a suburban area at best, we're satisfied that the 2 parking spaces per unit, it satisfies the regulations of the zoning bylaw, and we think that is going to meet the parking needs for the tenants for this particular development. We move on through that section of the planning report. There's the elevations for the building, so you can get a sense of, well, what the materiality is going to be, what massing the building has, things of that nature, as well as there's several other additional renderings. So council can really get familiar with what this development is really intended to look like. Now, I fully recognize that this is a new form of housing in the area, and that is something that there's some apprehension around that. I can certainly understand. One thing that I want to bring to council's attention, and perhaps I can get the staff to comment on this at the appropriate time, is when we initially approached the municipality about this proposal, it was our understanding and the municipality's planning consultant's understanding that an apartment building required a rezoning. There's a weird quirk in the bylaw where an apartment building is permitted, but there's a table in the bylaw that suggests only 1 dwelling unit is permitted. It was very confusing. So we proceeded on that basis that that this proposal required a rezoning. But just recently, it was brought to our attention that it was the opinion of the municipality that no, in fact, the 6-unit apartment building is legally permitted through the existing zone. And this is a zone that applies to a lot of lands in Springfield. So while, yes, this is a new form of housing, the reality of the situation is that this building is already permitted. The items that would be addressed through the zoning bylaw amendment are a slightly reduced side yard setback and a reduced front yard setback. But the building by and large is currently permitted. I understand that there have been some public comments provided to the municipality dealing with items along the lines as privacy, traffic, landscaping. Hopefully I can address some of those comments this evening. And if there's any questions, I can certainly answer those. When it comes to privacy, landscaping, those sorts of items, we don't really get into the details of the specific development this early in the process, but I can advise, we would anticipate at least a 6-foot board fence to be required through a subsequent site plan approval application, as well as perimeter landscaping. So my specific practice is when I work on this type of intensification project in an existing neighborhood, of course, we want to maintain as much privacy as possible. And 2 good ways of doing that are get a good fence and 2, plant lots of trees. So that's what we will endeavor to do through the subsequent process, but I appreciate those details are not yet available. But I do want to make that point that we are cognizant of that. We understand this is a new project in the neighborhood. And certainly we want to do everything we can to address any concerns that the neighbors may have. That's just a long-winded brief overview. Again, if council or members of the public have any other questions, I'm happy to answer them this evening. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Matthew. Eric, have you got any comments on this application?
Through your worship, perhaps the only thing I'd like to add is I've been asked to read, since the submitting of the report to council, there have been written comments submitted, and so I've been asked to read those into the meeting minutes tonight. So perhaps if there are no objections, I can do that.
Yes, go ahead.
So the first is received from Wayne and Patricia Zimmer from the 51422 Cressy line. We oppose this application for the following reasons. Currently zoned single-family residential, which in our opinion best suits the property and their surrounding properties. Safety concerns with increased volume of traffic with parking spaces for 12 vehicles. The application reads that the parking spaces to the rear of the building will be accessed via the abutting laneway. It is our understanding that this abutting laneway is a municipal right-of-way that runs from Ron McNeil line to Cressy line. Currently, the abutting laneway is not maintained by the municipality. With the added traffic of 12 parking spaces and the existing neighbor, will this matter be addressed? Whose responsibility will it be for maintaining this abutting laneway? Will there be ample water, sewage, hydro, gas if required to support an apartment building of this size on the property? The second comment is from Donald and Nancy Ross of 51394 Ron McNeil line. To whom it may concern, we would like to introduce ourselves, Donald and Nancy Ross of 51394 Ron McNeil line in Springfield. Our home is located across the road from the proposed sixplex apartment building. We strongly oppose this potential project and believe that changing zoning or making adjustments for one developer will negatively impact many longtime property owners in this area. Here are a few of our thoughts or concerns we would like you to consider before approving this rezoning. 1, no proper driveway. They're currently using a road allowance to access the property. 2, a sixplex could potentially house 30+ residents, which could lead to a strong possibility of not enough parking. Then we are in a situation where residents and visitors are parking along the sides of the highway. 3, a sixplex apartment building or any other multifamily structure does not fit in the current landscape of the neighborhood. The surrounding homes are all single-family detached homes. We all bought homes in the neighborhood with the expectations of keeping it zoned that way. It has always been without changing setbacks and high adjustments for apartment buildings. An apartment building will draw a tremendous amount of water in comparison to a single-family home. Can anyone guarantee this will not negatively impact our water wells? 5, if this structure is built, current property owners will most certainly see losses on their property values. And if zoning is changed for this apartment unit to be built in this neighborhood, does that mean we are going to keep changing zoning to cater to developers and have apartments being constructed without care for any homeowners in the community? And 6, we should not lose financially for the gain of a developer. Springfield is a beautiful community of large lots with affordable homes, with a wonderful school for families to raise children. This is what our community has to offer, not urban-style apartment buildings that outside developers build to squeeze every last dollar out of a small piece of land. We do recognize the need for affordable housing. That being said, this is clearly not the right place for an apartment building. Next comment is from the Peters family of 51402 Cressy line. To whom it may concern, the Peters family is opposed to construction of an apartment building being built on this lot. Our home is located behind the lot that this building is being proposed. Our concerns are a large increase in trash collection, as well as the local wildlife getting to the trash when it is outside. Another concern is the wells and water supply for such a building and consumption of water for many proposed apartments. Other concerns are with the amount of parking in the back of the lot would be directly facing our backyard, and the noise and disruption possibly of all hours of the day and night. Also, with such large building being put on a small lot, because of the height of the building, residents of the apartment would be looking directly into our backyard, and we would no longer have the privacy that Springfield has and offered over the years. Thank you for listening to our concerns, and we hope this plan will not be moving forward. Comments from Bill McIntyre. Proposed building of a 6-unit apartment would be a valuable asset in the township should it be constructed in an appropriate location and on a site capable of conforming to township zoning and building bylaws. The proposal to build this unit in an established single-family neighborhood creates several problems, such as effects on privacy of neighbors, devaluing home values in the neighborhood, creating safety concerns of local children due to increased traffic flow. Allowing a 40-foot building to be built within 1 foot of the property line will restrict the sight line for any of the 7 families turning onto Ron McNeil line from the right-of-way. The township liability exposure increases significantly, as now they have 7 families rather than 2 using township property as a driveway. Allowing this development to proceed would create a precedent that will lead to future similar requests. The township council and staff are responsible to make decisions that best represent their ratepayers I am sure that most councillors would oppose this development should it be in the neighborhood. I know I would. From Derek Fuller of 51413 Pressy Line. I will not be able to attend the meeting for the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, which I disapprove of and would vote against as a no. Thank you very much. And finally, from Cody Becker and Jason Featherton of 51421 Pressy Line. We are writing in regards to application D14-Z10-22. We are posing the request for the proposed zoning bylaw amendment for this application. We feel Springfield is a wonderful small village and don't feel that a 3-story apartment building would be well suited for our community, especially the subject property location. We reside on Pressy Line close to the proposed building site. We are also concerned that this means the abutting laneway will be extended to meet with Pressy Line for ease of access to the parking lot of the building. We already have issues with traffic on our road due to speeders and transfer trucks to and from Tilsonburg, and this would mean increased traffic with residents coming and going from the apartment building if this is the intention. And that concludes the reading of public comments that we received, or that I have received since the submitting of the report. And I have no further comments this time.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Adam, you have some additional comments that were received?
Yes, your worship, thank you. So Sarah Peters received just later this afternoon. She writes, my husband and I have great concern for the 6-unit apartment building. We live next door and share the same driveway with that lot. We have 4 children and we have lived here for 16 years and planned on staying for a lot longer. That might have to change if this building were to come. Our kids won't be as safe with that many cars in such a small laneway that we share. With the single home there was before, it worked fine and it would take away a lot of privacy and block a lot of view. We have always loved the small town feel of Springfield and would love to keep it that way and hope we don't have to move our family out of Springfield. And then we received, and beyond that, we received a petition, 11 names, 7 properties. Some of the names Eric have read out, but Patricia Zimmer, I believe it's John Peters, Anita Peters, Tammy McIntyre, sorry, Sarah Peters, who I just read, Isaac and Martins, Carolina Peters, Harold Peters, a Jack Erb, a Tricia Zimmer, and a Wayne Zimmer. I hope I read the handwriting correctly, but so they're stated their opposition in a petition.
Okay, thank you, Adam. Questions from council for either Eric or Matthew? Go ahead, Max.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have a question. I have a comment. My phone, my front door, my back door, my visits to the post office. Since this our proposal came out, a lot of people in this village, not just the locals right there where they're proposing the new apartment building, but throughout the whole village. If this is accepted down there, where's it going to end? What's it going to do to our village? I'm very upset. I don't have an answer for them, but I'm hoping through the process we can get an answer for them which is favorable to satisfy them. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Max. And the purpose of this public meeting is just to have input. The recommendation from staff is to take all the comments and staff will come back at a further meeting. So, Mark?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question, is the height of the building gonna require a variance too? Like, is it over height or?
Through your worship, yes, as part of the zoning bylaw amendment, it would propose site-specific provisions, and one of which is to increase the height from the required 10.5 meters to 13 meters.
Okay, I'm looking at page 120. It says 2.5 stories. Is that a mistake? You have a picture there. It says proposed 2.5 story apartment building. Didn't know if that's got something to do with the heights or what.
Sorry, if I can jump in and answer that question. There were multiple concepts of this particular building. One is a 3-story, one is a 2.5-story. The architects on the project ultimately decided to go with the 3-story. So the lower floor is raised completely out of the ground. And that's for two reasons. One, so that we don't have any dwelling units that are below grade. And two, if there is significant concerns about height, we're presenting the highest potential building height as part of our application.
Okay, thank you.
Max?
Well, thank you. Sorry. In regards to fire protection, I'll ask our fire chief this question. Are we equipped? Are we adequate to get to heights that this building will be?
Your worship, the height of our ladder, the highest ladder we have on our truck is 32 feet right now. I think I'd have to double check, but most ladders we use are 24 feet. So usually when you get higher than 3 stories, I'd have to check with other local municipalities. When you get higher than 3 stories or higher, they usually require an aerial fire truck. So
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Scott?
Thank you, your worship. Just in a conversation today about the building, and it was due to height restrictions that the privacy would be hindered, and that was a concern, actually, a deep concern. So I believe I would want to see maybe a reduction of maybe down to 4 apartments instead of 6 to bring the height down to more of a natural residential dwelling. I don't think we should, we should support it, residential building, but not an apartment building, which 3 stories is beyond our limits here. So just a comment.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, the mover and seconder, a public meeting concerning zoning bylaw amendment application number D14 Z07-22 of Leverton Development, related property located at Lot G, concession south of Main Street, registered plan number 18, known as 51403 Ron McNeil line, be adjourned. Council reconvene at 8:11. Mover and seconder, Lewis and Glinsky on paper. Carried. And there's a recommendation by staff that all of the comments be received and deferred, and a decision tonight to be brought up to a further future meeting. Okay, so Moore and Cerna, all in favor, carried. Thank you, gentlemen, for attending.
Thank you very much.
And when people turn their camera on, they're not popping except for Matt. It's stuck on this page. And then Eric was talking to there. People turn their camera on, they will.
Rob, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can.
All right.
Okay, the floor is yours, Rob. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to go through the consolidated financial statements with you tonight. I'd like to say that they'll be riveting and exciting, but I'm sure you'll know otherwise that that's not always my presentation, but I'll do my best to go efficiently and quickly through the statements and hopefully address any questions that you might have before you have to ask them. And I believe we're going to see these statements on the screen in front of you as I go through them. I'm actually going to start with our independent auditors report, which is our page 2. There's just one line in there that we have to read out basically. So this is a what we consider a non-qualified opinion, which is what you're looking for. And it is in our opinion that the municipality's consolidated financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the municipality as at December 31st, 2021, the results of its operations and its cash flow for the year then ended in accordance with Canadian accounting standards for public sector entities. And our report will be dated today, assuming we get approval for these financial statements. I'll then move on to your statement of financial position, which is our page 4. So these are consolidated financial statements. So they do include your proportionate share of the primary water board, secondary water boards, as well as the community complex. So just keep those in mind when we go through some of the various components. You will see influences from those entities. We also have comparable numbers as of December 31st for 2020. And I'll just try to go through and highlight any maybe differences or changes that would be important to recognize for the year. So as you can see, cash is up a little over $1 million. That's mostly what we would consider to be working capital changes. So some of your deferred revenues and accounts payables are a little bit higher, which is technically because those are liabilities. Those are money being extended to the municipality and resulting in an increase in cash. We do remind you that your investments in Note 2 are being recognized at their fair market value, so not the cost, but fair market value. And as we'll note when we get to the bottom of these statements, there is what we call accumulated remeasurement gains. So those basically are the unrealized gains in the portfolio, which is the $541,266. Taxes receivable, very comparable year over year. You do get through to Note 4, they are a bit higher in previous years. Your current is down a bit, and you will note that there is the allowance for the one ratepayer. Regular accounts receivable, fairly comparable again year over year. Most categories similar. We did have a grant receivable of about $600,000 included in 2021. So total financial assets of $14.2 million. Financial liabilities, so the temporary advances have been converted in 2021 into long-term debt. So that was related to some peer capital works. Deferred revenue, obligatory reserve funds. So that's items such as gas tax, as well as your building department fees, excesses, and any deferred grants. It's mostly gas tax and deferred grants that are higher on the deferred revenue. Accounts payable and accrued liabilities. So that's your normal trade payables, payroll remittances, deposits, those type of things. Again, reasonably comparable year over year. Net long-term debt at $3.6 million. So as I mentioned, you did take $1.25 million of new debt on related to the pier, but you did repay $204,000 of loan principal repayments in the year. So total net financial liabilities of $9 million. So that brings net financial assets up $1 million year over year. So that's a positive sign. Our non-financial assets. So as you recall, we now are recording those tangible capital assets on the books. We had $2.7 million in additions on the year and $2.6 million in amortization. So one of the thoughts behind recognizing tangible capital assets is to help council realize the dollar value based on our best estimate, the amortization, how much is being used up in the year, and that as a minimum you would be replacing that amount, which you have slightly done more than in the year. Some of those projects would include the Ontario Police College pumping station, some work on Pressy Line, as well as a tractor / sweeper and some playground equipment. Prepaid expenses mostly made up of memberships where you're paying a 2022 membership in December of 2021. So total net financial assets of $52 million, which is made up of the surplus of 51.8 and those remeasurement gains. And we'll do the breakdown of the surplus in Note 9, but it's important to recognize that that's a number of different segments of the municipality that's making up that 51 million. That's obviously not your go forward annual surplus. We go to the next page. That's our statement of operations and accumulated surplus. So here we have budgeted for 2021. We have actual for 2021 and actual for 2020. And I will remind council that the budgeted numbers are adapted for PSAB purposes. So that means they've been changed to include amortization, which isn't in your normal cash flow budget, as well as removing any reserve transfers that would be considered revenue, again, in the formats that you prepare your operating budget. Property taxes are fairly comparable to budget, slightly higher on the write-offs in the year. Taxation from others, so we did make some allowances within that category in 2021. User charges, licenses, permits, mostly we're seeing the increase there in both primary and secondary water usage. That's your main reasons for being over budget in that particular category. And you'll see in environmental, some of the purchases being higher as well of that water. Local improvements, for the most part, being drain related revenues being collected on behalf of benefiting landowners. Under our government transfers, under the provincial side, we did have a couple of CFA and Reliance grants from a capital standpoint that weren't included in the regular budget. And as well on other municipalities, again, relating to consolidating entities there being our slight over budget. So in total, $15.4 million in revenues on the year. On the expense side, general government and police and fire protection, very, very comparable to budget and expectations. Other protective services, the main reason being over budget there was emergency measures, which is basically the COVID related costs for the year. Transportation services, we did have some savings or we're under budget in areas such as fuel, repairs and maintenance on equipment, as well as some expected maintenance on roads. Water and sewer, as I mentioned, we're over budget, similar to the revenue side, related to water purchases of primary and secondary boards. Garbage collection and disposal, our major change there just being the contract negotiation was completed after the budget was prepared. I think there were some additional costs there that weren't initially anticipated. Recreational and cultural services, buildings and ground maintenance is actually being some of our higher costs there, as well as again influences of the consolidating entities being the community complex. So that left us with total expenses of 14.4 million and an overall surplus amongst all segments of on a PSAB basis of 987,000, and that being added to our accumulated surplus, giving us the 51.8 million total. Okay, good news is we get to go faster now. Basically, our net change in financial assets, which is our page 6, we are there just taking the financial asset component and going from an accrual basis to a cash basis. So we're backing off costs related to acquiring capital assets and adding back amortization. So we did have that $1 million gain there. The next page is the continuity of those unrealized capital gains in your investment portfolio. So we did have $72,690 of increase in unrealized capital gains in the year. Our next page is our statement of cash flows. So this is on an entity-wide basis rather than just on the financial asset. Again, going from an accrual to a cash basis. So if we go down under operating, so the entity in total, we generated $4.2 million in cash. We invested 153 in investments. We invested 2.7 in capital assets, and we repaid 200,000 in principal payments. So that left us with an overall increase of 1.2 million. We now move into our notes to the consolidated financial statements. There were no changes in significant accounting policies, so we get to rumble all the way forward to our page 14, note 2. When we get to there, basically that's just outlining your investments and on a cost versus a market basis. And again, I did want to highlight that we do recognize those on a market value, fair market value. I think we can move forward to our note 7, which is page 18. So these are the tangible capital assets broken down by category and the additions and disposals for each of those, as well as any amortization by category in the bottom section of that particular note. I think I'd like to move forward now to our note 9, which is page 21, and that's your accumulated surplus. So as I mentioned, that surplus is made up of a number of different segments. So your normal operating would be general fund, and then we have our consolidated water boards, as well as community complex, benefiting landowners, so basically drains. Then we have our big component of it, which is our invested intangible capital assets, the cemetery surplus. In this particular case, we have about 100,000 of unfunded capital projects, just projects that were partway through completion, and our reserves at 8 million, giving us the 55, and we back off the 3.6 million in long-term debt, coming up with the 51.8. If we go to the next page, or note 10, again, looking at those obligatory reserve funds, gas tax being up over the previous year, as well as our building department funds. And that other category is deferred grant money. So those are grant funds that were received for capital projects that hadn't been completed yet. And so we're deferring them until completion of that project. I think those are the main categories I wanted to go through for the financial statements. I'd be happy to take any questions if there are any.
Okay, thank you, Rob, for that report. I ask the same thing every year. Rob, is there any red flags that we should be concerned about?
No, I didn't see, comparing yourself to other municipalities within Alvin County and within the area. I didn't see any major concerns. Your long-term debt related to your overall your tax base, your reserve funds and reserves, all well within line or slightly better than what you would see in other municipalities.
Okay, thank you, Rob. I can sleep well tonight then. Thank you. Questions for of council to Rob? Seeing none. Thank you, Rob, for that report. I need a mover and a second. The 2021 audited financial statement for the corporation of the township of Malahide, as prepared by Graham Scott Enns, presented by Auditor Rob Foster, be approved and submitted. Mayor be authorized to authorize and sign the audited finding letters and audit planning letter and engagement letter from the Graham Scott Enns on behalf of the Malahide Township Council. Mover and seconder, Lewis and Jaguar, all in favor, carried. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you very much. And I want to thank management and Adams, I guess we could say, for their help in getting this prepared in a timely fashion. Once again, thanks to everyone to helping us get this prepared for council today.
Thanks, Rob. Good night.
All right. Good night. Thank you.
All right. We got Bob for the drainage update.
Good evening, your worship and members of council. Sorry about the confusion there with the quarter revision. Not sure what happened there, but thankfully it was a very straightforward and simple drain and quarter revision. So moving forward, I have the drainage report, update report for you tonight. My twice a year report. It's fairly straightforward. We've had several drains that were completed earlier this spring. We have several smaller to medium-sized drains that hopefully are going to be probably going in the fall or late fall, and hopefully those will be completed this year as well. And we also have several larger projects that more than likely won't come to fruition until spring of next year or summer of 2023. So it's pretty straightforward, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Questions for Bob on his report? Seeing none, mover and second, report number PW 22-42 entitled Drainage Update Report be received. Mover and Cerna, all in favor? Carried. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, Matt, you're doing the next report.
Yes, through you, your worship. This next report is brought forth to council as a requirement to make a suggested change on a county road. Council had prior requested staff to review site distances due to traffic safety and the need for possibility of a no parking zone on Imperial Road at the location shown in the staff report in Port Bruce. So upon review, sufficient site distance is not provided for the posted speed limit. And accordingly, a no parking zone may be recommended for the 250-meter distance shown if council so desires, which can be passed on to the county. I'd be happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Questions for Matt? Scott?
Thank you, your worship. Through to you, Matt. Just the report was great. Love the report. Definitely picked up some vibes from the community on the report. Wondering, due to a conversation we had, there is another option that could be put on the table with direction from council, maybe to come back with another option of not losing all the parking spots due to a speed reduction, maybe, or something along that lines, if I'm correct.
Through you, your worship, that's correct. So with the current situation was looked at the given posted speed limit of 50 kilometers an hour on that road segment, which ultimately, by putting the no parking zone in this location, about 42 parking spaces, up to 42 parking spaces could be lost. So if the speed limit was reduced on that section, that does result in a change to the required site distance, and those parking spots may not be removed from that section. So either way, it's a county road, and council can make a suggestion to the county to look at this section for a reduced speed limit or or keep the speed limit and remove the parking from that area, or do nothing and for further community consultation. It's council's desire, but there is an alternate scenario that could be undertaken.
Okay, thanks, Matt. And certainly I kind of prefer the second one. You get a busy weekend in July and there's not enough parking spaces even today. So if you eliminate 42, that really puts a problem on where people are going to go, and they're going to be parking on somebody's front lawn, which is really going to create problems. So I think we need to go to option B. Don't we?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I agree. Like, we need to stay focused on the goal. So we want to improve pedestrian safety, but find a trade-off that would not then cost 42 parking spots and then be a detriment to those who want to enjoy the area. So I would be in favor of exploring other options that would achieve that same goal. If we do look at the reduced speed limit, there have been discussions or suggestions from the community to look at that, not just on this stretch though, that it would be perhaps throughout the village, because it could create confusion if you have one spot that's 40, one spot that's 50. So perhaps the recommendation would be to consult with the community, but to perhaps consider the speed change for the village.
Yes, through your worship. So at this time, there has been some notes like throughout the year about different speed things within that village. So My recommendation on this report is that it could be received, and likely the second recommendation of the report not go ahead. And if council gives some staff direction on reviewing other speed zones in the Port Bruce in general, that's something that we could be coming back with.
Okay. Alice is wordsmithing it this as we speak. Mark?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a comment. I can't see it being a big deal going from 40 from the bridge down to the pavilion. Like, if we're gonna do it, let's just do the whole thing, get it done once and get it over with. You're not gonna gain that much speed anyway, so did the bridge actually slow down some of the traffic with the new stop signs?
So from a traffic safety perspective, a stop sign isn't a speed reducing device, although we do know that it does work in that manner. You have to come to a stop. Township staff haven't collected data to analyze what the change has been from those stop signs, but that'd be an assumption that it would slow things down, although it isn't a slowing device.
Any other questions or comments from that? I need a mover and second, report number PW 22-43 entitled Imperial Road No Parking Zone be received, and that staff be directed to further review the recommendations on Elgin County Road 73 Imperial Road. Serna, Glinski, on favor, carried. Okay, carry on, Matt.
Yes, so this next report advises on the status of various large operating and capital programs being undertaken in the Public Works Department this year. So I won't labor away on each project, but rather focus on two projects that I am seeking council's direction on this evening. The first being the pier parking lot construction. So a public meeting was held to showcase the project locally and solicit feedback from the community. And it was noted that the purpose of the project's inception was to address ponding in the parking area. The engineering design accommodates a reduction in parking. However, there are constructability challenges due to the very flat nature of the area. Comments that were received locally to ensure no raising of the road grade is undertaken and adequate measures are in place for ice breaking have resulted in an increased project estimate from the capital approved $125,000 for the project to between $200,000 to $280,000 to undertake the work. So there's significant projected variance prior to undertaking this work. So a resolution's been drafted in this report, which allows the project to be suspended at this time before spending that kind of unbudgeted money. There's no immediate impact at the present time to not undertaking the paving work, as the purpose was not flood drainage improvement, but only reduction in local ponding, water in the gravel parking lot when the ground is saturated. So it could just continue to be a maintenance item that road staff undertake rather than undertaking the paving works at the almost or over double but the project budget.
Okay.
The second project I want to speak to is the park project planned around the stormwater management pond in the Dixie Estates subdivision in Copenhagen. So the 2022 budget accommodated, the 2020 budget accommodated $40,000 to be spent for landscape construction, walking path, and play equipment. So community's feedback was requested with the current design having exercise equipment proposed in the plan. And we received considerable feedback from the community in the form of a petition with 28 signatures and additional 10 independent outreaches requesting that no equipment be installed. Instead, there is a preference for landscaping of larger trees, benches, possibility of a walking path, a possibility of a pond aerator. So staff recommend repurposing that budget to allow for retention of a landscaping contractor to select appropriate tree species and undertake a provisional walking path around the pond up to that amount of budget. So it'd be a landscaping plan and undertaking the work, but maintaining that current budget. And I'd be happy to answer any questions on this
Okay.
report.
Thanks, Matt. Questions for Matt on this report? Mover and second, report number PW 2247 titled Operations and Capital Projects Update be received, and the construction of the Port Bruce Pier paving be suspended pending future budget considerations, and the adopted $40,000 capital budget for the Copenhagen Park construction be repurposed to accommodate a phased landscape plan for the subject area. Winner, Jager, all in favor? Carried. Carry on, Matt.
Yes, so this next report is in action with the expiry of the fuel delivery contract with Davis and McCauley Fuel per the 2019 to 2022 tender, which does allow for 2 additional 2-year term renewal terms. So staff are satisfied with the current service being provided with the local supplier who was successful at the 2019 tender and recommend that this first renewal period be undertaken.
Thank you. Questions for Matt on this one? See none. Mover and second, report number PW 2248 entitled Contract Renewal Fuel Delivery 2022 to 2024. Davis McCauley Fuels be received. Mayor and clerk be authorized to renew the existing agreement with Davis McCauley Fuels for the additional term of 2 years and to execute the necessary document for such. Serna, Glinski, all in favor? Carried. Carry on, Matt.
Yes, through your worship, this similar to the prior report, the diesel and unleaded card lock agreement has also expired. And again, it's noted in that 2019 tender, which allows for 2 additional two-year term renewals. And again, staff are satisfied with the current arrangement and recommend that this first renewal period be undertaken to continue use of that card lock fuel program.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Question for Matt on this one? Seeing none, mover and second, report number PW 2249 entitled Contract Renewal Card Lock Fuel System 2022 to 2024. Delta Karn SOB received. Mayor and clerk be authorized and directed to renew the existing agreement with Delta Karn SO for additional term of 2 years and to execute the necessary documents for such. Serta and mover, all in favor? Carried. Next one, Matt.
Through you, your worship, the 2022 capital budget presentation noted that there are a number of locations identified in the center third of the township deficient of guide rail per the adopted phase 2 road safety audit. The deficient areas totaled an approximate value exceeding $800,000. So the township is proceeding on a phased approach with $200,000 adopted in the 2022 budget. Tenders were called for the locations identified in the previously adopted phased-in plan. And 2 bids were received, the low bid coming in at $210,690. Staff do recommend proceeding with the award of the project and the funding the $10,690 shortfall from reserve.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Questions for Matt on his report? And then mover and seconder, report number PW 2250 entitled Tender Results Guardrail Installation be received, and the guide rail installation contract be awarded to Royal Fence Limited of Dorchester, and the mayor and clerk be authorized to enter an agreement with Royal Fence Limited of Dorchester, Ontario for the purpose of supply and installation of the steel beam guardrail. Lewis and Serna, all in favor? Carried. Carry on, Matt.
Through you, your worship, this next report is in relation to the Vienna Line and Hacienda Road Design Awards. Staff did solicit proposals via the public bids and tenders site for the engineering design of these 2 culverts. Following receipt of the 2020 OSIM inspections and the 2021 street report advising on the status of the culverts, noting the required replacement will be forthcoming shortly. So it's noted in the staff report that a 2-envelope system was used to ensure the consultant is able to perform the required work. And while the overall price is still considered based on a 60-40 weighting for technical ability versus financial. 5 proposals were received for each of these packages. In both projects, Safe Roads Engineering achieved the highest point total, and submitted a price within the 2022 capital budget allowance for the work. So upon entering an agreement with Safe Roads Engineering, the design of these two culverts is expected to be completed by December of this year, which allows for opportunity to move forward with construction replacement strategy in 2023 and recognize opportunity for possible grant funding should it be offered up. Staff do recommend award of this project, noting the proposal is less than that which was initially budgeted. And noting the similarities of the project, Safe Roads Engineering has included a 10% discount on the price of each contract if awarded both.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Questions from Matt on the culvert? Seeing none. Mover and second, report number PW 22-40 entitled RFP results, Vienna Line and Hacienda Culvert Replacement Design be received. Purpose of the Vienna Line Culvert Replacement Design be awarded to Safe Roads Engineering in the amount of $38,736 plus HST. And the proposal for the Hacienda Road Culvert Replacement Design be awarded to Safe Roads Engineering in the amount of $27,063 plus HST. Mayor and clerk be authorized to enter an agreement with the Safe Road Engineering for the purpose of completing the Vienna Line Culvert Replacement Design and Hacienda Road Culvert Replacement Design. Jagger and Serna, all in favor? Carried. All right, carry on, Matt.
So in my final report this evening, staff did tender for a 1/2 ton and 1 ton replacement pickup trucks per the adopted fleet replacement plan and in consultation with Township Equipment Committee. So there is an error in the report noting that the actual trucks being replaced are the 2010 1 ton, which is shown correctly, and the other is not a 2015 shown in the report. It's a 2012 3/4 ton Chevy. So these tenders did close. Two suppliers submitted bid for each, and one additional quotation was submitted for the 1 ton replacement by courier. However, it wasn't received until after closing time of the tender, so it was not open. The combined budget adopted for these two replacement vehicles, the tender recommendations being the 1/2 ton Ram 1500 supplied by Eichenberg Chrysler and the 1 ton Ram 3500 supplied by Elgin Chrysler, came in approximately $6,300 under budget. However, the 1 ton replacement does not come with the dump box, and therefore staff sought aftermarket quotations, which the low bid came in at $14,500 to complete the transaction. This brings the total 2022 replacement program $8,100 over budget, which can be funded from reserve and accommodated in the 2023 budget, noting the long delivery timeline of these products. So noting the overage, staff do recommend awarding these purchases to stay in line with the current fleet replacement plan, which does allow vehicles to be moved between departments and functions to allow the best usage. And I can answer any questions.
Okay, thanks, Matt. I hope you have better luck than I have. I'm still waiting after 17 months, so it may be a while before you get this one. Anyway, questions for Matt? Where?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through to Matt. Matt, if in fact there is a long delivery time, will we have an out on this? We don't want, I know guys that have went 2 years. And they still can't get them, so.
Through your worship, I don't believe we have an out on it. However, by awarding the price, we would, by awarding the contract, we would avoid future cost escalation by canceling and then going back out and soliciting new bids at a time when we decided to cancel something like that. So I don't believe there's an out from this on a timeline, but there is an estimated timeline supplied by the recommended suppliers within 6 months to a year. So it is a wide range, but it was noted.
Yeah. Well, I signed up for a 21. I'm probably going to get a 23 by the time we're finished. Any other questions for Matt? Mover and second, report number PW 2246 entitled Tender Award Fleet Vehicles be received. The bid received from Eichenberg Chrysler of Tillsonburg, Ontario, in an amount of $52,483 plus taxes for the purchase of 1 new 1/2 ton pickup duty is accepted. And the bid received from Elgin Chrysler of St. Thomas in the amount of $61,199 plus taxes for the purchase of a new 1 ton cabin chassis be accepted. Mayor and clerk be authorized to enter an agreement with Eichenberg Chrysler of Tillsonburg Ontario for the supply of the above noted half-ton pickup. And mayor and clerk be authorized to enter an agreement with Elgin Chrysler of St. Thomas for the supply of the above noted one-ton cabin chassis. Winder, Lewis, all in favor, carried. Okay, Adam, you're next.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I've prepared a formal financial planning review of the township's reserves for council's consideration. This report builds upon our 2022 asset management plan that was presented at our last meeting, which plotted a course for our water, sewer, and tax funded capital reserves over the next 20 years. It is my intent that council endorse the new reserve structure that is being brought back and that it be brought back and updated each year as as part of the township's annual budget. The review provides explanations for how each reserve is funded, their uses and restrictions, their available balances, their target balances, as well as commentary on how those targets were determined. The report discusses things like how and why certain funds are restricted by legislation, how much money the township should save for unforeseen events, and how reserves are used to finance the township's capital program. We're proud to be taking this step to begin to pull back the curtain on this area of the township's finances. My hope is that it demonstrates our commitment to the public to manage their tax dollars in a way that is both efficient and transparent. I welcome council's feedback on my proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Questions for Adam on the reserve fund? Dominic?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Once again, thank you for very good work because we are continuing to be on that path of clarity, transparency, and I would suspect it's going to make it easier to plan also and to use targets and to discuss and make budget decisions. So well done. I had one question around just the labeling in Appendix A. So the large fund that sort of consolidates a number of reserves, I think currently you're suggesting calling it infrastructure. And I'm wondering, because we want clarity, and I'm wondering if that might cause a little bit of confusion, because I think it includes vehicles and emergency gear and all of that. So do you have, I don't know what your thoughts are, if you have other suggestions.
Thank you. Given that it's going to be the primary funding source to fund the capital budget, it would be fine to call it the capital reserve if that's more representative and reflective of the broad scope that the reserve is being used for. So we could call it, my recommendation as an alternative would be to call it the capital reserve.
Okay. Any other questions for Adam? Now, mover and second report number FIN 2217 entitled Reserve and Reserve Fund Planning and Performance to be received. Director of Finance be authorized to restructure the township's reserve to reflect the changes proposed in Appendix A structure continuity. Jer and Cerna, all in favor? Sure. Okay, Gwen, you're next.
Good evening, your worship and council. I've brought to you tonight our annual update for the health and safety policy under the Occupational Health and Safety Act. You'll see from the report that this is an annual requirement that we update the policy so that the new draft policy is attached. And there's lots of information in the report. I've given you a summary of the incidents that have taken place, a summary of the meetings, and all of the discussions and inspections that have taken place over the course of the year. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you, Gwen. Questions for Gwen on the health and safety policy? None. Mover and second report number HS 2201 entitled Health and Safety Policy, Occupational Health and Safety Act. Annual update be received. Mayor and Chief Administrative Officer be authorized to sign the health and safety policy on behalf of the corporation. Moore and Glinsky, all in favor, carried. Thanks, Gwen. Next, we got reports from the committees and outside boards, one from the complex from June 8th. Any questions or comments? Mover and seconder for that one then, please. Lewis and Jagger, all in favor, carried. Correspondence, we have 7 items. Anyone wish to make comment or support? No burning issues. Mover and second to receive and file then, please. Glinsky and Lewis, all in favor, carried. Next, we have on the other business, we've got the ice resurfacer from the township or from the complex. I know the last meeting we had that there was 9,000 hours, and based on replacement, probably is going to be at least a year before they get it. So I'm going to suggest that to council that we support the recommendation from staff that they order a new one, because it could be some time and they'll be over that 10,000 hours before they get it. So questions, Mark?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe we were told the meeting before that it's got 5,000 hours. And all of a sudden it jumped to 9,000 hours. There's no way. Absolutely no way. So I don't know where we're at now. Are we gonna order one next year? Like you don't want to order one now, right? But I think,
Well, the recommendation is to put an order in and hopefully get it within the year, but it's probably not right. But I know that they did say it was 9,000 hours, and I gotta
right,
believe
and I
staff.
questioned it then because it was 5,500 in the meeting before.
I know, but I gotta believe staff, it is 9,000 hours. Because it is 10 years old, right? Yeah.
But we're also told it runs 16 hours a day, and I think that was the best practice.
Rick?
I'm sorry, guys. Sorry, Mr. Mayor, that I missed that arena meeting, but, and I know it's got 10,000 hours on it or whatever. I'm hearing two different things here. But what exactly is wrong with this machine? Other than the fact that it's old?
I think it's reached its end of its life. I mean, I think 8,000 hours is the expected lifespan. And they're at 9 and probably gonna be 10 before they get another one. And I think the fear is that if it breaks down, then there's issues on maintaining the ice if there's no replacement. Any other questions or comments? Okay, need to move in seconder that the correspondence received from the town of Aylmer dated June 22nd, 2022, relating to the East Elgin Community Complex Board Meeting Resolution regarding the EECC 22 capital budget be received, and the estimate of 105,000 provided the EEC board advanced to the proposed 22 capital budget for an ice reserve be approved. Jagger, seconder. Mover, all in favor? Opposed? And it's, okay, so we have a second resolution. Correspondence between the town of Aylmer dated June 22nd related to the East Elgin Community ice service to receive, and that estimated 105,000 for the EEC board advanced proposed capital ice resurfacer be denied. Widner, Lewis, all in favor? Okay, carries. Next, we have the Catfish Creek. Are you going to speak to that, Adam?
Sure, your worship. So the Catfish Creek is the federal government is issuing some funding to assist in updating flood studies, and the Catfish Creek is looking to update its riverine and floodplain mapping as it would pertain to Port Bruce. And they've passed a resolution in the correspondence that we've received in front of us tonight that they're seeking a 50% contribution from the Township of Malahide in that study. And they've provided a quotation from a consultant and a cost. So this would be, if it was to proceed, it would be a Catfish Creek Conservation Authority project. They're asking the township to contribute 50%. The quoted cost is the second last page of the agenda. It's just under $50,000 total plus HST. And as I've mentioned, they're seeking 50% contribution from the township. In the agenda, what we have is that the study be received. What Catfish Creek is looking for is either direction from council whether they're going to support or not support the funding. What I have done is put forward two possible additional resolutions beyond that if council is either interested or not interested in supporting the Catfish Creek. What I should add is that I believe we should fully support the updating of those studies. It's been since 1982 that last time flood mapping has been done for Port Bruce. So I think regardless of the township contributing funds to the authority, that we do speak to fully supporting the need for those updated studies. Lastly, this sort of study is considered to be a core or a category 1 responsibility of the Conservation Authority. What the township already does is contribute funds through the levy to the authority for the Catfish Creek Authority to complete these sort of responsibilities. So it can be said that we're already contributing funds through the levy for the authority to perform these responsibilities. But what they are asking is 50%. So I will leave it there. And if there's a discussion or any questions, I can try to answer.
Okay, thanks, Adam. Questions for Adam? Dominic?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also want to add to that information that, so I sit on the board of Kettle Creek. And so Kettle Creek completed a very similar study for Port Stanley. And the study used the same firm. So a couple of things when I compared the two. So the study completed for Port Stanley was $18,500. So I compared the scope. The scope is a little bit different, but I would want to know, from Catfish Creek, why is the scope that different? And what is it that Port Bruce needs, like many more hours? I also note that Catfish Creek did not use an RFQ process, which Kettle Creek did, and I don't know why they would have gone sole source, because and I don't know if there's a link, but this is all public knowledge, but if you compare the consultant fees, the range, the fees for each consultant, the hourly fees is between, I think, 10 to 30%, like depending on the consultant, higher than the rates, like just less than 1 year ago, the same firm, the same individuals charged 30% less to Kettle Creek. So it just raises a lot of questions, aside from the fact that it is, as our CEO mentioned, it is core business. This is something that we pay already for Catfish Creek to do that. And Kettle Creek did seek the federal funding that is available and did not seek additional funding from the municipalities. So I definitely support the study, but I don't support contributing additional funding that we have not budgeted for.
And in addition to that, I think all the municipalities in the watershed should be paying this, not just Malahide, because it benefits the whole watershed. So we got a resolution that speaks to that.
Essentially, we're not going to support it. We recommend doing it, but not to pay for it.
Okay.
Are you able to seek whether there wants to be support or not support? And then we can read, I don't know, just an idea.
Well, I would recommend that we support doing the study, but not paying 50% for it. That this becomes out of the general budget of the Catfish Creek, and certainly everyone should be paying for it because everybody benefits from it. So that would be the resolution. So I guess I'm looking for support of that resolution. So moved by Lewis, second by Jagger. All in favor? Carried. Sure, yeah.
So the recommendation there that was approved is that the correspondence received from Catfish Creek Conservation Authority dated June 22nd, 2022, relating to Catfish Creek Conservation Authority, Port Bruce ravine floodplain mapping and coastal floodproofing study be received, and that the Council of the Township of Malahide fully supports the pursuance by the Catfish Creek Conservation Authority for an updated ravine floodplain mapping and coastal floodproofing study for the village of Port Bruce, and that the Council of the Township of Malahide acknowledges the floodplain and regulations as well as natural hazards technical studies amongst other programs and services are considered to be category 1 as described in Ontario Reg 686-21, and being those mandated programs and services which all conservation authorities must provide in their jurisdiction and eligible to be funded by municipal levy. And that given the Township of Malahide already contributes through the municipal levy towards such eligible services and programs, the Council of the Township of Malahide asks that Catfish Creek Conservation Authority prioritize this initiative through an appropriate scoping and procurement process using existing resources or through other government grants to ensure the ravine floodplain mapping and coastal floodproofing elevations for the village of Port Bruce be updated in a timely manner.
Very good, Allison. Thank you. All right, mover and seconder, bylaw number 22-51. Oh, sorry, other business.
Mr. Mayor, I have one item.
Okay, go ahead, Dominic.
So staying with Port Bruce, I was thinking just based on the follow-up questions that I've been sort of consolidating, accumulating since the staff published the Q&A document. So as you may recall, we held a community meeting on April 5th, I think it was. A couple of weeks later, so the staff, Catfish Creek and the township put together a Q&A document that they shared with the community. So that was well received. But as with all conversations, the answers triggered additional questions. So I was wondering, it's been a couple of months and I have gathered a list of questions that I'm happy to share with staff. They fall in just basic categories of what's happening with studies, further explanation of the dynamics of the different ice jams at different points, more clarity on roles and responsibilities, and any steps that have been taken, any decisions, any changes in the chain of command, for example, or communication of emergencies and all of that. So I thought it'd be fair to provide the community with an update if we could. Thank you.
Okay. Any comments, Adam?
Yeah, just one, because I believe that's appropriate because the comments that were sent to the community were at a staff level, a lot of which would require council direction to proceed with. So I think it is timely that some of these items come back in front of council, and then those are so that staff are given direction on whether to do something, not to do something, or what have you. So those are my comments.
Okay, thanks, Adam. So the mover and secretary council direct staff to prepare the follow-up report on the Port Bruce flood to address matters arising from the Q&A document provided to the community in April 2022. Fair? Mover and secretary, Jagger, Lewis, all in favor? Carried. And a mover and seconder, bylaw number 2251 being a confirmatory bylaw, being on the first, second, third reading, properly signed and sealed. Serta and Lewis, all in favor, opposed, carried. And mover and seconder, the council adjourns meeting at 9:08. Meet again on July 21st at 7:30. Linsky and Widner, all in favor, carried.